A very wise man once said, "No one man should have all that power." So we kicked Josh off the desk. Water cooler, up next. Welcome back to the water cooler. I'm Grace Marlowe, joined by Chris Lopez. Josh is gone, but we think
Gone forever, or just a week.
but we think we can do it without him, and that is why we are here. Josh is actually in Seattle, setting up for USC
Shouts out Josh
Washington.
Cohen. Hope the flight was good.
So looking at the game, predictions off the top of your head.
Well, the first that comes to mind when you look at USC Washington is how dynamic both of these offenses have been, especially recently. I mean, Washington is one of the best offenses in the country, lots of different playmakers. Everyone's been talking about that all season. But USC, I think, especially over the last 4 or 5 weeks, has sort of cemented themselves as just as dynamic of an offense. Those weapons that were sort of slow to move in the beginning of the year, whether it be Juju Smith or Ronald Jones, have really, as of late, gotten going and gotten hot. Juju Smith is now showing himself to be that possible best wide receiver in the country that everyone thought he would be. So now it seems like this team has reached full maturity. It seems like we've reached now our identity. It seems like we understand who we are as a football team, and that is definitely going to play out tomorrow, and I hope that it sort of keeps us on the same page, and I think that we'll be able to at least play them tough.
Absolutely. Well, looking at Washington's offense, it's eerily similar to USC's.
Yeah, eerily similar.
Balance is kind of a major component of the two teams. Looking at Washington's offense that you were talking about, John Ross III leading in touchdown receptions in the Pac-12, 14 and 16
catches.
total, leading the conference.
Jeez.
They also have Myles Gaskin with 952 yards through the season.
LeVar
Is there
Coleman.
anyone on USC who you see contending with those two players?
So obviously then it will be for us on defense.
Yeah.
And I think that it'll come down to Cameron Smith and Michael Hutchings, who for the middle have been controlling sort of the defense for us, and especially the running game. And for on Saturday, it's going to be extremely important to keep Washington one-dimensional. As you mentioned, the balance is sort of what is key for them and keeping their whole offensive strategy working fluently. And if we're able to disrupt that balance, especially through maybe containing Gaskin early in the game and not allowing him to break those long runs that we've seen him break so much this year, if we can manage to do that, just to force some third and longs, I think that Browning will become a little bit predictable, and that's where our defense can strike.
Right. Jake Browning, an excellent quarterback this season. He's running with a 202 passer rating, which is pretty much unheard of.
It's over 200?
Yeah.
Geez.
With that last performance with, I believe, 6 touchdowns, no picks against Cal.
That's how Washington became 4th in the nation.
He has 34 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. The matchup, Sam Darnold, the freshman wonder.
Yeah.
Freshman redshirt, though. 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. The numbers on both of these quarterbacks are unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Do you see either one of them having the edge?
Oh, well, I think it'll be who makes the least amount of mistakes. I mean, as normally in battles of great quarterbacks, it's who throws that crucial interception or who, in Darnold's case, fumbles away the ball when he probably shouldn't.
Right.
And so having 2 hands on the ball and something like ball security is going to be extremely important. I don't know if one of these guys has the edge on paper, but obviously on Saturday, one of them is going to make a choice, either good or bad, that probably determines the course of the game. There's just no way to get around that. I'm thinking, Grace, for you this weekend, what do you look at as the X factor for what thing that maybe, other than the dynamic offenses, the things that people always talk about, what matchup are you looking at?
I'm really looking at the Adoree Jackson, John Ross III matchup. We were talking about his dynamic movement as a receiver. 16 total touchdowns is unheard of. Washington is such a powerhouse team, but they're a powerhouse team that's flexible. And that's what I think is very underrated about them. They have so many different options that it's hard to stifle them. And the past teams we've played have been offensive passing teams. So we've been able to shut them down in the air. With Washington, they have guys they'll hand off to. So I think the X factor for USC is simply excelling at every position. They really do have to play their best game of the year. But if you think about it, I was looking at the schedule for Washington. Washington started their season against Rutgers, went against Idaho, Portland State. USC comes out with a horrible beatdown
Not
victory.
exactly the gauntlet for Washington.
Beatdown loss against Alabama. 2 very similar teams. Since Darnold's come in, we should be 6-0 or 5-1.
Yeah.
Do you think if the schedule was switched that USC would be performing as well as Washington?
That's a good point. I think that we actually would. I think if the schedules were flipped, that you could very easily have had USC be ranked 4th and USC be undefeated up until this point, and Washington maybe struggling early. The early season struggles for us, maybe a bit of a lack of maturity, not knowing our identity, but we've reached that now. Had we had that easy schedule beforehand, we might not have had to weather any losses. And yeah, we could be that undefeated team. So really, it's hard to tell who is the overrated or the underrated team in this scenario. But we're definitely more even than ESPN's giving us credit for it. 83% for Washington. Get out of here with that. It'll definitely be a very close competitive game. I think you said it right. If we can win the one-on-one matchups, and we have guys like, you have all-conference guys like Adoree going up against a guy who has 14 touchdowns in the season, one of those things has to give. And whichever one of those gives more, obviously if we can win more of those one-on-one matchups, that'll be what puts us over the top.
One team coming in to try to cement a reputation, the other trying to hold on to that 4th spot in the BCS.
Exactly.
An absolutely thrilling matchup. We will all be excited to watch on Saturday. Moving on, USC basketball comes back into their season against Montana, a worthy opponent. They've lost quite a few people.
Yeah, lots of departures from last year's squad, which is concerning. I mean, you lost a lot of seniority, I guess, on that squad, if you will, with Julian Jacobs and Nikola Jovanovic moving on to the NBA. And we'll have to replace that experience and that leadership, most importantly, because our roster's still young. And in basketball,
9 of the 14 players are underclassmen.
Oh, boy. Is it that many? All right, so we're going to need some leadership bad. And that's going to come from guys like Jordan McLaughlin, who was an early player of the year candidate in the Pac-12 a bit there and slowed down as the season went on. But if he's able to, he'll be handling the ball a lot more for us, and his role will be much bigger. And if he's able to excel and continue that production throughout, that'll be a great sign for us going forward.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
I think the biggest tell of this season is that we lost 3 players who averaged 35 points of USC's 81-point average per game. That is a big hole.
Yeah. That's
hard to fill. And Elijah Stewart and Betty Boatwright, also players along with McLaughlin, who are going to need to fill that space. It's going to be a rebuilding year. I don't think that I don't think you can lose that many players.
I mean, it's college basketball. Every top program turns over almost their whole roster every year.
But other top programs, we had 2 guys go to the NFL draft, NBA draft, and another player transfer. 2 guys that weren't drafted. It's not like Kentucky is turning over prospects, filling in prospects.
But the building blocks, if you will, of our team are still very much so there. I mean, Boatwright and Metu especially are the 2 pillars that would have guided this team regardless of who was still on it, and did much of that last year. And they now have another year of experience, and I definitely say, if not even for Metu, for Boatwright especially, he suffered a little bit from inexperience last year. You know, a couple ill-advised shots, maybe hitting a couple threes and then just thinking that he could bomb threes the rest of the game. And now that he's had those experiences and had those learning, being able to learn throughout the course of a season, having some success, I look at him and Metu especially to sort of be the pillars for that next level of leadership. I think they can do it. They showed that they were early leaders last year, and really they just have to continue to take the mantle. They just have to do what they've been doing in bigger roles.
Absolutely. We'll see in their first game against Montana. Moving on to more basketball, the NBA is now rolling, and I am happy. It's back. I'm back. We're all back.
You're now an expert.
Absolutely. We're looking at early NBA season grades. We're finally enough games into the season to see exactly what's going on. Who are your A's? Who's top of the class leaves an apple on the desk?
Apple on the desk is definitely Cleveland Cavaliers.
Absolutely.
I feel like they've continued exactly what they left off with in the finals. They've played solidly together. It looks like they're playing specifically very chemistry-laden basketball. Like all of their passes and all of the movement and fluidity of the offense is really starting to show. Where you don't need LeBron to put up 35 anymore to win.
Right.
You can rely on different guys, different nights, and really be able to build that full team roles that are really important when you get to the playoffs. So the Cavs are my A first and foremost. How about you?
I would absolutely agree with that first. I think that Kyrie Irving is pushing that team. I think where LeBron might have gotten complacent after kind of fulfilling the legacy, Kyrie's hungry. Kyrie's going for wins. So I would definitely agree with that. My A-, and you've heard me talk about this before, is the Toronto Raptors, but DeMar DeRozan gets an A+ because DeMar DeRozan is playing absolutely top-notch basketball. And another player, we always have these players come up in the NBA who sneak up on you a little bit that shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because we've always known DeMar DeRozan's an excellent player, but
He's
when a
been
guy comes out,
all-star.
scores 30, 40 points a game, any team would love to have him right now, and we're seeing a lot of teams struggling to put up that point production.
Do you think that the Toronto Raptors can ever get to a point this year where they are above the Cavs? Do you think they can be, because we saw even last year,
I don't think they're as deep.
Yeah, it's
They're
hard to
not
say.
nearly as deep.
It's just kind of an
That's
issue.
kind of where it leaves for me.
Can DeRozan, I guess, reach that next level because if he maintains this 30-plus point average, and maybe not through the whole season, but show that he can score so much and beat defenders like LeBron?
Right.
Will that even still will that put them over the edge at that point? Because I'm not still sure.
What I think will put the Raptors over the edge is when free agents looking for teams start to consider the Toronto Raptors as a destination. And it's starting to become more of a respected team.
Yeah.
The franchise is becoming.
Playing in Canada must be pretty sick.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's looking for a way to Canada now.
So now
join the Toronto Raptors.
From the best teams to the worst teams. Obviously, the Philadelphia 76ers at the bottom. Another one that I was a little surprised to see is the Pelicans. I guess they couldn't do it with Anthony Davis, huh?
Yeah, I think it's almost like the same thing with the Raptors that you're looking at, where you have one player playing excellently, but his backup is not enough. Yeah. And they're playing in a tougher Western Conference, dealing with all of the issues of that. It's
we'll see what they can do going forward, right?
I think Anthony Davis is not. He's playing extremely well. Yeah. He's playing out of his mind, to be quite honest.
But the team around him can't do it.
And I don't think that they are helped much by his presence, besides point production.
Yeah.
I think that's where they're falling short.
I guess so. Speaking of people who are falling short, the NFL, particularly a lot of the issues that they've had going on with hits and referees, there have been a lot of problems with officiating this year, especially from a just purely getting things right standpoint. And whether or not winners or losers are decided, there should be a standard of we're getting as many of the rules as we can right, theoretically, in the NFL. Right. Hasn't seemed like that's been the case so far this year, and players like Richard Sherman now are becoming more and more outspoken about it as the weeks go by. Grace, what do you make of Richard Sherman's comments recently and this whole debacle?
Well, everything is coming off of Richard Sherman's very, very late hit on Carpenter, the kicker, which was a brutal hit. But I don't look at Richard Sherman as one of those players like Vontaze Burfict, like Ndamukong Suh, where he is obviously trying to injure people. Yeah. Should he have been called for a late hit? Yes.
Probably.
And so then going into the issue of the refs, I don't think Richard Sherman is a dirty player necessarily.
He's aggressive. He's definitely aggressive.
But it's the National Football League.
It's true.
So it should be aggressive. I think where the issue has come in is with the replacement refs in 2012 kind of started this culture of, do we trust these people to make as big of plays as the people making the real plays?
It fractured that trust.
Because there's a level of trust that has to be there if you're having someone play out of their mind and then someone's going to completely negate that. Yeah. And we saw it with late game catches. And the replay system has come in, and it's almost kind of delaying the game. So there's this double-edged sword where you're saying we want this game to continue with passion, but what do you do when a million people see something that one person doesn't, and that is the key factor?
And the issue that our technology is getting so much better, and our ability to make those fine pinpoint calls and be able to have instant replay where you go frame by frame to make sure that everything's correct, our capacity to do that has gone up, but the trust and what we think the refs do has actually gone down. Because referees being a problem and deciding key moments in games has always been an issue. Look at the tough rule with Tom Brady in 2001. Referees have decided crucial games, conference champion games, in the final seconds, and the game has totally been turned on their decision. So that hasn't changed. But as you said with the replacement referees, since really that period, it seems like there's been just an aura of distrust amongst the NFL players that the referees are getting it right every time and just doing the due diligence and having that sort of process where if something goes wrong, at least we know and people are held accountable. But it seems like calls get made arbitrarily and the players have really no say in what goes on in those games, though they're the people making the plays and they're the people who are at the top of their game and can't do anything about it if the ref makes the wrong call.
Absolutely, and we see this transcend into other sports as well. Recently, my home team, the Denver Nuggets, they're contesting a late game possession call, which gave the Memphis Grizzlies possession of the ball. They inbound the ball and make a buzzer-beating shot. You play your whole game out, you lose on this one moment.
That should have been the other way.
The rule
book says it's the other way. The referee's job is to know the rule book. So
exactly. So
not really sure where this can go forward. It'll be on the NFL to address it.
I don't either. And you know what for some reason comes to my mind is that Buffalo Wild Wings commercial where they hit the button under the bar and the ref messes up the call, or a sprinkler comes up. We're going to overtime. That's sometimes how I feel it is.
Well,
sometimes it feels like the games are just not professionally refereed,
which is concerning. Other things that are concerning about in our world, a lot of the controversies that are happening on social media now, I guess even relating to people not being held accountable, there are a lot of professional athletes who are now talking more and more on social media about social issues, especially with the election we just had on Tuesday. A lot of people voicing their opinions, and voicing your opinions can be a little bit of a double-edged sword. You know what I'm talking about, Grace?
Absolutely. Especially right now, I think the main player in the spotlight is Colin Kaepernick.
Of course.
Colin Kaepernick.
And he put himself there.
Exactly. And I think the issue comes in with sports. Elite athletes are allowed to voice their opinions as long as they play at the same consistency. And I think there's this view in the public of an athlete speaking out about an issue, prioritizing something over, which I don't think is personally fair.
It's not fair at all.
I don't think it's fair as a citizen. It's fair as a fan.
No, it's not.
I think it is.
No, it's not fair.
If you look at Colin Kaepernick, who's causing a lot of unrest on your team, however righteous the unrest is, sitting on the bench.
But
isn't that a distraction?
In a situation
as
like
a sports fan,
it is a distraction.
You're investing money
and
in these tickets, money in the team.
He chooses to be a distraction. Of course, he makes that decision himself. But
absolutely. For the right cause or not.
His point and how valid or not that point is has no bearing with how many touchdown passes he throws. But unfortunately, as you mentioned, whether or not fans take that point seriously and whether or not they're willing to listen to said conversation directly depends on how good that player plays.
Right.
And if Colin Kaepernick were an MVP candidate right now, everyone would be paying attention to like the things that he was actually saying and willing to engage in that argument. But since he's a backup quarterback, no one really gives him even the time of day, which I don't necessarily blame them for, but that is sort of one of the problems that comes up with athletes talking is
and we've seen this before with Michael Sam, Jason Collins, where people it's almost like their play has plummeted as the public eye increases.
Yeah, but they are still just as much athletes as they ever were, so it shouldn't really have an impact, but it does, and this is kind of unfortunate.
Absolutely.
What is also unfortunate is we're gonna have to go to break right now.
Yep.
So I'm getting the go to break right now signs from the guys, so we'll be right back with the water cooler. Stay tuned.
Do you want to control what thousands of people see? Because we have that many viewers. So make sure to take CTPR 409. You'll have tons of fun. You want 2 credits, you want 4 credits, either way, you're gonna love it. And you don't need to have any prior experience. We'll teach you how. Check it out, it's really easy. You can control the camera, be a big time cameraman. This is so fun. Look at that. Be an audio person and with the sliders, that sounds fun. Be a graphics person if you're technically inclined. And you can meet some celebrities. Recently we've had people from Homeland, Hunger Games. I'm pretty much already best friends with Jason Segel. Trojan Vision is the highest ranked college TV station in the world. Every semester you don't sign up for 409, the terrorists win a small victory.
Welcome back to the water cooler. So we have a small segment for you, College Game Day. It's dear to our hearts. The signs are dear to our hearts.
Near and dear. I still miss the freshman Stanford College Game Day. I'll always remember that moment.
That was exciting.
It was so great.
We didn't realize how good we had it, so we've made some College Game Day signs.
Even if it's in Washington, we need to participate.
Exactly. So our UW, USC signs. Chris, would you like to begin?
Oh, I'm gonna start with the first one because this is just a true fact. Jake Browning eats Luna bars. And I don't think you should win a college football game if you eat Luna bars. You're not preparing yourself well as a quarterback. Can't stand for that.
My first sign, we taught Sark how to party.
It's true.
You had Sark first. We got him. We ran him out of town, but he had a great time.
He had a great time.
He had a great time.
Sure knows how to kill that Jack Daniels whiskey. Another one of mine. Enough sports, party now. I think it's a philosophy that all of UW should embrace, especially so that we can start being number 1 in the Pac-12, so they can just all get distracted right now. So enough sports, party now.
There you go. My next sign is Chris Peterson, Washington coach, for those uninformed, voted third party. I think that speaks for itself. He exercised his right, but
he did.
Was it right? We'll never know.
Was it right? Was Chris Peterson right? We'll never know. And is that the man
not know.
that you want coaching your football team?
I don't think it is.
One man that I'd be okay coaching my football team, or at the very least giving inspirational speeches, is our own Josh Cohen, who's in Seattle right now. We're going to toss to him on the phone. How's
it going, guys?
Josh, are you there?
Are you here with us at this moment?
I'm here.
He's here.
He's
I hear him.
Oh my God.
Good afternoon.
Josh, what is the weather like in Seattle right now?
Man, I'm wondering where the sun went. It's gray here, as expected. It's supposed to be pretty chilly for this game. But, yeah, it's gray. Haven't gotten a chance to be outside yet. I'm at baggage claim right now.
Solid.
But, yeah, it should be good.
Josh, I want to know if you heard my intro and how it ranked against your own.
I was still probably in the air when you were doing an intro, but I'll have to go back in the archives and watch it. I'm sure it was
a classic. Just
fantastic.
So you know. Josh, how do you feel about our chances tomorrow?
I feel great about our chances. I think we're playing well. Upward trajectory, Lopez. It's huge. This team gets better every game, and I honestly think we're going to win. I'm calling 28-27 upset on the road.
Oh, baby.
Josh, do you think there's any, factoring in of Washington's atmosphere, Husky Stadium constructed to hold more sound?
No question about it. The place is raucous. It's a tough place to play. They're going to be going crazy. They got game day, of course, so I think it'll be a tough environment, but I think USC comes out on top.
Cool.
And,
thank you, Josh.
It should be a fantastic game. Thanks, guys.
Bye,
Have a good
Josh.
one, dude. Have a great time.
Don't come back. We're having fun.
Please don't come back or come back. We need direction.
Oh, my gosh.
So that was our own Josh Cohen. Obviously, we all are liking our chances tomorrow, so really we're just ready to ride that victory party all the way home.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing or what makes every party better is, of course, more college game day. I just want to give this one down with college game day. Not in a sense of tearing down college game day, but come back to Los Angeles, please. Come back to us. I want more college game day, please. Oh, God. Anyways.
My final sign is the Electoral College has Washington 4th. Do we trust them? I don't know.
Do you trust the Electoral College? What results have they given you?
What have they, after this weekend, a lot could be different.
Yeah.
We'll just have to let the Electoral College decide.
One thing that will always be the same, of course, at least on this show, is Office Pool. The one segment that we really keep it consistent to today. Got a few games for us on the ledger. First, the Seahawks and Patriots. Grace, who do you got for this game?
I've got the Patriots. Both of these teams are looking pretty strong, but the Patriots, in terms of Tom Brady, are an unstoppable force.
Yeah.
He threw 4 touchdowns last week. Rob Gronkowski is finally looking like his old self. It's like we turned back the dial.
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah,
We're back in the glory
I
days.
remember when a Seahawks team that looked a lot like the Seahawks team that they still have took that Patriots team to the very edge, and perhaps if they'd simply made 1 or 2 different play calls, would have had a Super Bowl ring over that exact team. And I know that the Seahawks no longer have Marshawn Lynch, but Russell Westbrook is looking good as of late. He's been injured earlier in the year.
Russell Westbrook?
Russell Wilson. He was injured early in the year, but now he looks good. I think that the Seahawks can honestly take this one.
I don't know.
I like
Seattle's
the chances.
defense allowing 425 yards against the Bills.
They have the talent. and
Against
that's what
the
counts.
Bills?
Legion of Doom,
You
let's
can't give
go.
those yards to the
Yeah.
Patriots. Oh my
Anyways,
God.
next game.
Next game is Steelers-Cowboys. A lot of interesting QB action in this one. Who have you got?
Oh, I have the Cowboys in this one. I think, Big Ben, of course, the experience, of course, the long history of being able to throw countless touchdown passes, but he's injured. He won't be able to do that this week, and the Cowboys have been running train on everyone they've played. I think they'll just run the ball on the throat.
Coming off of injury, he hasn't had the lower body strength that he needs to get back to his prolific throwing abilities. However, they're looking to bounce back. 3-game slide, I think this is a game where they really show what they have against a good Cowboys team. The Steelers have only dropped 1 at home. They're awful on the road.
Okay.
But you got the
this is at
terrible
home.
towels.
This is at home.
Yeah,
so it's
this is
fine.
at home.
All right.
I think Ben Roethlisberger pulls it together. I think they outwork the Cowboys, and this is a great win for the Steelers to bounce back.
That's good. I'll take the one on my ledger. That's fine. Anyways, last one. We have Falcons-Eagles. I think we both picked the Falcons
We
for
did
this one,
both
yeah?
pick the
Both picked the
Falcons.
Falcons.
Maybe in honor of Josh not being here.
Yeah, we miss you, Josh. But the Falcons have the best offense in the league. Matt Ryan is looking like an MVP candidate, which you don't get to say very much, but is definitely at least in the conversation. And the Eagles have been reeling as of late. After a hot start, Carson Wentz hasn't necessarily looked like the all-in-control, never-turn-the-ball-over quarterback that he once was.
Absolutely.
Maybe that was just early stage fright, maybe it's now some jitters after an early success, but I still think he's a quarterback of the future. How about you?
I think he's a quarterback of the future. He feels pressured very easily, which I think either way, early quarterback, jitters, it sorts out to the Falcons have Vic Beasley, who has 7.5 sacks.
Yeah.
If he's pressuring Carson Wentz
this would be a
the way
long
that
day
he
for him.
should be,
Yeah.
it's gonna really hurt them.
Well, and the Eagles just remember that they're bad. So
Absolutely. And the Eagles can't handle the number 1 offense in football.
Yeah. Anyway, they can't.
No.
So, anyways, moving on to our next topic, which is a little bit of a Meta World Peace shout-out. He really over for his entire history, but especially recently has given us some of our fondest moments of sports following, whether or not it be his outpouring of his love of basketball or his name change at all, or the fact that he comes to China and then brings back really just a love for life in the game. And Metta World Peace is basically the most valuable patriot in America. So who, Grace, is your most valuable American? There's so many to choose from.
That's a really difficult question because I had all these thoughts in my head about why Metta World Peace is the greatest American.
He is maybe the greatest American.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, he went to China, comes back, kind of an eat, pray, love type of thing.
Rob Gronkowski also, I feel like is very Metta World Peace and his embrace of life and love. What if they got together and made a TV reality show?
I mean, I
Gronk
think you
and
can't.
Metta.
There's
Metta
no
Gronk.
way you can do that without adding J.R. Smith into the mix.
It only gets better.
There's no shirts allowed.
No shirts allowed.
Everyone loves basketball. I bet Gronk loves basketball.
Gronk probably, he'd be a great dunker. He'd be like a just 4 that runs the floor, dunks, and plays D. That's who he is as an NBA player.
Absolutely.
He can make that transition. We
I
can
think-
make this happen, people.
Wow, I think that's a reality show waiting to happen.
Yeah.
I also think it would be a great boy band trio.
Ooh,
I'd like to see what they come up with.
yeah.
Maybe a rap super group.
A rap
I'm
super
just coming
group.
up with ideas.
A rap
Maybe like a
super group
Dream
titled
Girls
No
type
Shirts Allowed.
girl power group.
Girl power.
for-
They could be
Just
the cheetah girl. They
spitballing.
could be the cheetah girls, just as professional athletes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they
I
could-
think that works.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah. Anyway, other things that work, especially was some final memos that we have for you today. First of all, which is a mom at a Golden State Warriors game who had it working, if you will.
I am this woman.
It was a dance
I will
cam.
be this woman.
Yes, this is a future Grace Marlowe.
I will not root for the Warriors, but
But the dance
I don't know
moves will be
where she
there.
got that sweater.
The sweater's beautiful.
And what's so remarkable about this is that, as most mediocre dancers know, you kind of stick with one move and you go with it as long as it works, and then you break away. There are no breaks in this. It's so
it is
fluid.
Fluid, continuous. It looks like she's been doing those moves the last 30 years. They're practiced. They are precise.
She's magnificent.
It's
I mean,
incredible.
she almost makes you forget that the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead.
Anyways, next we have on the docket is Iman Shumpert, who's very surprised by the fact that podiums can move.
I mean-
and the fact that you could just command people as the President of the United States.
I'm not going to say it didn't surprise me too, though. I'm not going to say I didn't understand.
Yeah.
But, he was hanging out at the White House. The Cavs were all at the White House.
enjoying a
Speaking of
victory
3-1
dinner.
lead.
And he's just shocked. He cannot believe that people just move the podium.
He's top right up there.
He can't believe it.
He even turns to say, like, dude, maybe,
Dude, he won a championship, and I think he was more surprised in this moment than he was when they won.
yeah.
He was just overwhelmed.
I think this is when he really realized, like, the effect of this election and how much power the president has to move that podium.
What I think is ironic is those guys moving the podium is pretty much Shumpert, and LeBron is typically Obama. Like when LeBron is in the Cavaliers, arena or whatever, and he says go do something, people do it. And if it's something on the court, Iman Shumpert's the guy who does it. So he's the person who moves the podium. So he should really feel like some camaraderie there, I feel like, because he's the lackey really on that team.
Do you feel like the world expanded for Iman Shumpert?
I feel like it did. That was definitely a mind-blowing moment. I mean, it was, wow. He couldn't handle that.
Well, here's to hoping that everyone this weekend has a moment like Iman Shumpert where your consciousness expands and you see some good in the world. If it's a podium moving, or if you love basketball, or...
Be amazed at something, even if you don't understand it. Especially if you don't understand it.
Absolutely. We
So-
are glad that you joined us this week on the Water Cooler.
So, fight on, everybody.
Join us
Have
next week and fight on.
I'll toast. Toast to that.